Welcome back to Football on the 40. I'm your host, Bowen. Andrew, Kevin, and I are Texas football fanatics and alumni, and we can't wait to break down the 2024 college football season with you. In the past few years, there's been a lot of change in college football with NIL, the CFP expansion, and a ton of conference realignment. This year's going to be no different. There's going to be a few changes, and we're going to highlight this fall Texas's entry into the SEC, our maiden season, renewed rivalries against A&M, Arkansas, the playoff expansion, and of course, the biggest change, what y'all all have been waiting for. Texas is back. That's right, folks. Let's do this. It's been a minute since our last podcast. This is the first episode of our new season. So, fellas, what's new? Andrew, we're going to start with you. Anything to update us on?
Colorado, great. Baby girl Harris is coming. Football is so back. Why did I start this podcast with a haiku? I have no idea. I'm just so excited for football to be back. We do have a baby girl on the way, but I'm not the only one with a baby on the way, or babies. Kevin, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of our updates are going to be kid-centered. We're kind of in that phase of life, but we were also excited to find out that Laurel was expecting and shocked to find out that they were twins. I know that you guys know about that, but I've been on a personal journey since then, trying to grow up a little bit. And it's been really fun breaking the news to you guys and a lot of our family. Everybody's also been stunned and telling us it's going to be okay, but we're not sure it will be yet. But that's mostly
Kevin,
what
it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. We've got about 5 or 6 months to prepare for it, so plenty of time to get more mentally ready. But the twins are definitely the biggest part of my last few months. But I'm super excited for another year of football on the 40. I can't believe we've been doing this for almost 4 years. This is our 4th season. It's really surreal. But like we said last week, this is an awesome way for us to catch up, not all living in the same place. And it's also going to be a really exciting season for Texas with entering the SEC and also having the expanded college playoff. Like, if we have a couple of losses early in the season, I'm grateful that we don't have to feel like the season is over, right? So I'm just looking forward to those themes, talking about those with you guys all season.
For sure. Well, I'm gonna play this back, Kev, when it's in October, and I need you to come out of a spiral. Hopefully not. But yeah, fellas, I'm super excited for my neck of the woods. Our little one, we still only got one. Theo, he just turned 1 this past weekend actually. So super fun time celebration with family and with friends. So that was a ton of fun. And other than that, yeah, we've just been planning what the fall calendars gonna look like for our family with the travel and all the football games. And Emily's just getting mentally prepared, I guess you could say, just see what the calendar is gonna look like. So super stoked about that. In terms of some logistical updates, listeners, a few pod updates this year. You might notice that there's only 3 of us here. Our buddy Jake, he has decided to not renew his contract for this year. He's holding out. No, we're just kidding. But no, he decided to step away from the podcast, but you can still expect to see him drop by occasionally for some podcasts throughout the year. And we look forward to having him when he comes back and as a guest. The next thing and the biggest thing, depending on where you're tuning in from, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that's amazing. But if you're joining us from YouTube, you can see our lovely faces now. This is a big thing that we're trying out this year. So, welcome for all our folks tuning in from YouTube. Really stoked to have you all as well. And we'll see if there's any new fans out there. Say hi in the comments. Looking forward to interacting and definitely looking forward to sharing about the season. So
one more thing.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, we're tacking on one more thing that our wives are going to hate about this podcast. So we're all really looking forward to that development.
That's true. Yeah, we'll see what the YouTube algorithm does if we see random folks chiming in and seeing us. We'll see how long this will last. But yeah, super excited to just try it out, a new creative outlet. But yeah, in terms of today, what we have on the agenda today, obviously there's no game for us this upcoming Saturday, but we're going to discuss a few different topics. We're going to talk about fall camp, just checking in on how things are going. For listeners, y'all may have seen some news come out of fall camp with some of the roster. We're going to update y'all on that. And then we're going to give a quick primer on a lot of the changes that have gone on in college football with the playoff, with the conference realignment. We're going to bring y'all up to speed. And then the last two, we'll do season predictions. Most of us were pretty good last year on our predictions. We'll see if we can follow that up with our first year in the SEC and see how we'll do in the playoff. And then last, we'll follow it up with the award-winning betting corner segment. Surely, we can't do as poorly as we did last season. So we all start from zero. It's fresh slate for us, so we're excited. There's so much possibility. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with checking in on fall camp. Andy, we'll check in with you first. What are some of the big headlines coming out of fall camp that you've been hearing about?
Well, first off, I just kind of want to bring this up, but talking about both of y'all were kind of talking about the optimism coming into this year. And for the listeners out there, we have a group text that's it's been going on for about 5 or 6 years now, just solely focused on Texas football. And every August, we would always change the group text name to Optimistic Kev is here, because throughout the year he would be so pessimistic. But once August came around, he kind of turned into back to his old self and got excited for the season. And we again did that this year, but Kevin's been optimistic all year, so it doesn't ring the same as it used to.
It's true.
I have.
It's true.
I've been feeling good since, I guess, May of last year, and felt good going into last season. But
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see it. I take the first loss really hard. Sometimes it takes me about 10 days to bounce back, but there is like a very predictable like ebb and flow to like my attitude about Texas football throughout the year. So, I mean, we'll get into it. I'm cautiously optimistic about this season. I've gone back and forth about games like Michigan, so I'm looking forward to talking through that.
Yeah, for sure. Just kind of going into fall camp right now. Two major injuries. Everyone's probably heard about it by now. But Baxter, obviously, great running back last year. He had a great freshman season. He was banged up a little bit last year as well, but he's going to be out, I think it's 6 to 9 months with a knee injury. That was disappointing to hear. And hopefully he can return like back to his normal self next year. But when it comes to knee injuries, you're just never sure. Kev?
Yeah. I don't know what he tore, but I heard he tore two different ligaments in his knee. So it was almost immediate news, like he's out for the season, which in this position group brings up a lot of question marks after losing Jonathan Brooks last year. And then
for sure.
the other key injury is in the same room with Christian Clark out. I don't know exactly if they've made it public what his injury is or what his expectation for returning to the team is if he'll play this year, but two of the top maybe four running backs, including the starter going out in fall camp, is really not good. So it's not all bad, but that's definitely not helpful.
Yeah, Christian Clark will be out for the year. He tore his Achilles.
Yeah, I think I saw that was in
if y'all remember, if y'all remember Jonathan Gray, he tore his Achilles as well. He was never really the same afterwards. I really hope that's not the case for Christian Clark. 10 years is a lot in the medical world, so hopefully that's good news for him. We'll see. I'm sure the recovery for him is going to last a while, but speedy recovery to him. Then we have one more week of fall camp. Then officially game week, I guess, starts next Sunday. I'm sure they're doing some prep this week. I'm sure they're probably doing some Michigan prep as well, as they've been doing probably all summer. But starting next Sunday, we'll be solely focused on game week, and we'll have our first game preview next week. So we're excited about that. Kev, what about trends? Noticing any trends in fall camp?
I listen to a lot of other podcasts and watch a lot of Texas football talking head YouTube, and especially after last weekend, the topic came up about replacing production on the offensive side of the ball after some of our guys that got drafted recently really showed out over the weekend. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stories and whatnot about how much talent we have in wide receivers, but like we kind of have to rebrand our offense after losing Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, and AD Mitchell. So there's some new exciting names that we'll get to know here shortly, but they're for the most part unproven. Um, Talked about Jonathan Brooks too. Like that guy was so reliable running the ball, especially in clutch moments. And we've lost him and CJ Baxter that had playing experience last year. So there's a lot of skill position turnover, a lot of new names for the listeners to learn. It might take a few weeks to feel like we know this team, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Another major one is Jatavian Sanders. I've read a little bit about, other up and coming names in the tight end position and, feeling good about their blocking abilities, their pass catching abilities, but I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't recognize that there's at least a handful of very key position players that are no longer here. So I'm hopeful that Sark, is the dude on offense and we can figure it out by week 2, but it might be a lot to ask, especially going on the road to Michigan early on. A couple others that I jotted down that are obvious for anybody listening is also this doesn't just impact the offensive side of the ball. The heart and soul of our defense has also gone in to Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. And of course, there's a lot of talent behind them. But again, we're replacing names that we were hearing almost every play on TV with unproven, new, younger talent. So sure, we've got experience all across the field, but it's going to feel like a brand new team. Um, we'll see. I don't think we're gonna have a losing season by any means, but the way that I picked our season predictions was colored by that, wanting to have realistic expectations based on how much change there is. I think a lot of times people just focus on Quinn
Mm-hmm.
and this being his third year starting, like, oh, surely, the team will be better, but let's
Yeah,
not be surprised if it takes a little bit for them to get chemistry and an identity. You know what I mean?
for sure. I feel like it's every day we're like glued to our phones, hoping and praying that Justin Wells doesn't come out with a tweet that says there's another injury. We're just happy that a scrimmage report came out that everyone was healthy, there were no additional injuries, and then from that same report we found out that like the running back room was like all no contact. So we
Yeah.
kind of rigged the game, but hey, we'll take it. We'll take it. That's we still need a W. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm hoping the boys stay healthy, and yeah, that we go into the season strong for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to add, which I think ties into the point that you jotted down, Andrew, is we learned from past years where we were told that people like Brecken Hager was like the man and he was gonna win the Heisman. You hear a lot of reports about oh, the offensive line is looking great. And this time of year that usually means the defensive line is bad,
That's true.
because they're playing against each other. And I'm also hearing a lot on the offensive line, like, oh man, we got so many guys on the D line that are just gonna go crazy. Like we're gonna get so many sacks this year. And on the other end too, the pass pro looks amazing. Like you can't get by Cam Williams. So there's a lot of unknown there.
Yeah,
Is some
we've
of
been
what
burned in
we're
the
hearing
past.
legit, or is it like the Brecken Hager take of past where he just has this crazy personality, but he's not making as many plays as we thought he would on the field. So
Yeah.
um, it's hard to know what's real. But in terms of who's winning in these scrimmages, Andrew, from what we
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
how have the scrimmages gone?
Well, we'll find out the real answers going into Michigan week 2. So that'll tell a lot about our team. Yeah, it seems like the offense was kind of struggling at first, which is not atypical for fall camp. Um, but it seems like the defense has gone better, got the better end of the offense. So uh, they're expecting D line, as Kevin said, expected to do pretty well this season, which is saying something given that Sweat and Murphy they've left. Hopefully the secondary is better. It seems like they are, based on what we've heard from fall camp, but we'll see. We'll see
hmm
what happens. Hopefully, that's not an indicator that receivers, are not up to par, up to the receivers last year. So,
yeah, yeah. I'm excited. we'll see how it all shakes out. Speaking of elsewhere around the league, as we mentioned before, there's a ton of changes this season in college football, from the new CFP 25 video game that came out, that has taken the lives of our buddy Blake and I'm sure countless others. There's tons of conference realignment as well, with new players in the Big Ten, and now it's Power 4 conferences instead of Power 5. No more Pac-12, which is a big change. I think seeing like the old Pac-12 teams in the Big Ten power rankings, it's going to take me, like y'all said, a couple weeks to get used to that. But Andy, what else is new around the league that that folks should be aware of?
Did y'all see in the college football game that they made over $500 million within like the first 10 days?
Did not see that, but that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
I wonder.
people wanted the content.
I wonder if that outweighed the productivity loss in our like GDP this year because of how many people have been doing that all day.
Definitely not.
Recession.
Yeah.
Well, the
It's
stock
not a housing
market
crisis. It's a college football video game crisis.
the stock market did crash like that Monday, like a couple weeks after the video game came out. So you never know. um, but yeah, more serious things. Definitely major year of realignment. We've talked about it a lot. Texas OU, obviously in the SEC. We got USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon in the Big Ten. New schools in the Big 12, ACC. We got Cal and Stanford in the ACC. Makes no sense, but that's the life we live in now. But yeah, and then change in the CFP as well. Goes up to from 4 teams to 12 teams. The top 4 seeds get a bye in the CFP now, and those top 4 seeds will be conference champions. It will be most likely, it's not guaranteed, but most likely the Big Ten champion, SEC champion, ACC champion, and the Big 12 champion. And then from there, you got the group of 5 plus I guess they're still called the Pac-12, even though it's really the Pac-2. So one of those conference champions will be the last automatic berth, and they will probably be the 12th seed as it shakes out. And then the rest of the teams are going to be at-large bids. So then the first round games are going to be on campuses, so that'll be sick.
That's going to be awesome.
If Texas got a first round game, we all have season tickets, so I mean that would be sick to go to.
Does that means we would get a ticket or get the chance to buy one, maybe, right?
Yeah, I think we would have to pay additional money for it, but I mean, I think we would all probably do that.
That would be really cool. I would,
yeah,
obviously love that.
Yeah,
it would be a bummer. It'd be a bummer if it's like Liberty, like Texas versus Liberty in the first round.
That'd still be sick though.
It would still be cool.
DKR in December. Cool. Oh,
yeah. I think one of the most interesting things about this is that the group of 5 or 6 or whatever do get an automatic berth, because we were talking about this beforehand. I was under the impression that they didn't. I kind of had to learn the rules of the game right at first, which is it's new to everybody. But I looked at the last 5 or 6 years of the CFP to see what the likelihood of one of those teams finishing in the top 12 and getting in the tournament was. And it was basically not possible. It only happened in 2020 in the COVID year, where I think Coastal Carolina finished 12th. So the likelihood that one of them would get in if there wasn't that rule of automatic in was nil. So, seeing a matchup like Memphis versus Oklahoma, or Appalachian State versus Tennessee or something, is going to be really cool, because we see those teams play, but they're not games with a lot of consequence. You know what I mean? They're usually the SEC easy in the middle of the season game, and it doesn't ultimately mean anything other than embarrassing the heck out of A&M, which is still fun. But that's going to be really cool, and just the fact that the tournament spans a month. I think the first games are in mid-December, and the national championship in January isn't until January 20th. So if you watch college football talk shows on ESPN, those analysts don't really know how to break this down. Like it's the first time it's happened, and we're gonna get to see like a lot of insights and conversations for a really lengthened period of time that we're not used to as fans. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm
Yeah.
like, I think this is the coolest part of the season as a whole, maybe even more so than us joining the SEC. And like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna be grateful for it after we've had like our second loss and the season's maybe not over yet. Um, I will be, but well, like wouldn't be surprised if this was a big topic like
Yeah.
almost every week on the podcast this fall.
For sure.
Yeah.
How on that note, how excited are y'all on a scale of 1 to 10 for the new playoff and the new season structure? Andrew, we'll start with you first.
I'm a 7 out of 10. I think the last, kind of like Kevin was alluding to, like the last month of the year is going to be awesome. Where, bowl season was great for us growing up, but the last, 5, 10 years, a lot of bowl season was pretty boring,
Hmm.
pretty dull until you got to the CFP. But, it brings back the importance of bowl season, which I'm excited about. Um, I do think it's going to be a little bit weird. For instance, Oregon and Ohio State play in October. They're probably the favorites right now to play in the Big Ten championship, and then they could potentially play again in the CFP. So that would be 3 times they would have played in 1 year. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just going to be something to get used to. Um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But overall, I'm excited. I think y'all might be a little bit more excited than me, but I am excited overall. Kev, what about you?
It's more football, which is a good thing. My interest in sports is like really heavy on college football and not so much on NFL. So anything that lengthens this season for me or makes games in mid-November, late October more consequential raises my interest and prolongs that even if Texas is having a tough season. And like it's advertised right as a 12 team playoff, but because of the automatic bids for conference champions, like those are playoff games too. So you could say maybe it's like a almost a 5 or 6 week deal where we're way out of that like BCS thing where a computer decides the two teams that are going to play. Like the championship experience is going to be, you know, a month
Yeah.
or 6 weeks, and it's going to feel a lot more like I think the NFL playoffs, but with a lot more passionate, younger fan bases, which is going to be really, really cool. I think you're going to look back on the season and say it was a 10, not a 7.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. Wow, I haven't heard the acronym, I guess BCS in so long. Can you imagine if we were still on that model right now with all like the AI and the LLM stuff going like that and the advanced statistics that we have now? That would be, I guess, like to a certain extent the committee still uses those, but I also am glad that our fate is not decided by Nvidia, although, Kevin and I probably
But
wouldn't be too upset if that was the case.
I would
if,
be so
if
nervous going into the season if we were still in the BCS.
yeah, if that being said, though, if AI was in control of the two teams that played, I think there would be a lot more public interest in monitoring, the ethics of AI and the safety of AI.
That's
If
true.
if it was going to affect college
That's
football
true.
directly, because
We would have a lot more folks um, bought bought into understanding it. I agree, and trying to yeah, break it down and understand. So yeah, you might have something there. I'll round us out on the expectations. I'm kind of in between y'all. I think I lean more on where Kevin's at. I'm a 9. I think the expansion will be good for college football, good for the college athletes, good for entertainment. And I agreed, more football is good, and diminishing the pain and hurt after every single specific loss and needing to be perfect, I think will help us in the long run as well. So yeah, looking forward to that for sure.
next up we're gonna go back to the Texas season. We kind of went macro there. We're gonna go back to micro, back to our base. We are passionate Texas fans, obviously. So we're gonna look at the slate of games for this season, regular season, and pick wins and losses each. We did this before the podcast, so I'll try to quickly run through the games that don't matter, and let's talk about the ones that do. Um, First game, Colorado State at home. All of us are picking a win. Moving on. Second one, no surprise, is interesting. We go on the road to Michigan, the national champions from last year. Andrew and Bowen, you're both picking a win. Let's talk just for a moment about, your level of positivity or, good expectations going into that one. What leads you to believe that we're going to beat them on the road?
I think so. Michigan, they're replacing a lot of basically their whole offense. They're replacing. Um, JJ McCarthy wasn't my favorite quarterback in college football, but you can't deny that he was a leader. He led well, and I think he only had one or two losses in his college career. So um, he, from that standpoint, was a great college quarterback. Michigan from there, like intel on fall camp, not a lot of positivity with their quarterback situation. Now they're going to have a great defense again. That's going to be the big matchup, our
Hmm.
offense versus their defense. But in my opinion, I think Michigan, in order for them to win, it's going to have to be like a 17-13 game. And I just don't think I would be surprised if we don't score at least like 20, 24 points against them, just based on the amount of talent that we have on our offense.
Bowen, quickly.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think?
mean, I think all the turnover. Andy went much deeper than I'd be able to. I think the turnover for sure. I think from my perspective, one of my good buddies at work is a Michigan alum, and he's just been bemoaning and really not looking forward to the season with everything going on. Pretty much exactly what Andy mentioned. So I feel
Hmm.
good about that. The part that I don't feel good about is Andy and I are both going to be there, which is awesome. But my away game attendance record is abysmal. It is so 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 bad. I can't actually remember the last travel game that we went away game that we went to that I actually saw us win. But here we're gonna reverse that trend starting this year in the SEC. So yeah, we're super stoked about that trip and to go up to Ann Arbor to see the Horns play.
I was with you guys until I started gluing back into the team about a week ago and hearing other informed analysts and journalists talk about the impact of the running back issues that we're going to have.
Mm.
And like the two running backs that remain on our roster and kind of like their style and how that influences things like fourth and goal or um, red zone play. I'm nervous about that, and I'm nervous about recognizing how much we lost in wide receivers and tight ends and needing to replace that, which we will, but also needing that to be clicking on all cylinders in a loud environment early on in the season. I think it might be asking a little much for us, which is going to be a gut punch because we will outrank Michigan and might even be favored on the road, but it's going to be it's going to be a good one to watch. So, we got some disagreement there. The next three games are also easy for us. The next three are at home. We play UTSA, ULM, and Mississippi State. All of us agree on all of those. Please, God, let's just win them. But we're all picking wins there. Um, then we get to a middle point in the season, which a lot of people have recognized and talked about already. We play OU and Georgia back to back. And fortunately and unfortunately, we three agree on how these two games are going to go. We're all picking a win in Dallas, which will be exciting. That's fun for us because it's an opportunity to get together with a lot of friends that go up to Dallas and live up there. So it's a big, pseudo social event for us. But you know, hopefully we get the win there. I don't know what we could add to that, but why, Andrew, should we be confident about that game against OU this year?
Honestly, OU for all the conference games, I shouldn't say this, but I'm feeling really confident about that game. Sark is really good in revenge games. Y'all saw it last year. We beat all the Big 12 teams on our way out, minus OU, but we play them again this year. Um, I just OU offensively, they're not going to be the same. Their offensive line is really suspect, which that does not bode well. Their defense will be good, not nearly as good as Michigan, in my opinion. I just think Sark with a chip on his shoulder is going to perform well. So I'm expecting a win in Dallas this year, which is a dangerous thing to say.
Yeah. But we've seen a lot of them in person, so I think we've we're cautious with our expectations about that one. Bowen,
Yeah.
I'll have you talk about Georgia because each of us
Yeah.
agree on the outcome there, which is where it's good and bad. We agree that we're going to lose that game in Austin. I think from a fan experience, us each having season tickets, that's going to be pretty much the game of the season. Maybe for me because you guys are going to Michigan. But why are you feeling a loss there, Bowen?
I think it's just like you said. I mean, we're starting October with back-to-back really, really emotional games. I think if we come off a big win against OU, I think the message boards are going to be crazy, singing our praises. The 247 subscriptions are going to be through the roof. Everyone's going to be really, really high on that Kool-Aid, and then Georgia's going to come into town. There's going to be a lot of distractions that weekend too. Maybe not for the team, but just around Austin with F1 coming in as well, and just a ton of stuff going on. And coming off of a really emotional, hopefully, win against OU, I think Georgia's gonna come in and really try to show us up. So I'm not really feeling super optimistic about that. I hope that we do pull it out, but I think this will be unfortunately a loss for us at home.
Obviously, I agree with you there. I mean, that's Daddy coming to town. That's
Yeah, there's
Kirby.
a new daddy now.
That's
New
Kirby
daddy.
Smart coming in. Yeah,
No more
yeah,
Saban. It's Kirby now.
yeah.
It's true. It's true.
But okay, if we beat Michigan, OU, and Georgia, we're the number one team in the country, ranked after that game.
Yeah,
We haven't played
hands
CFP
down.
yet, but it's cool that we got opportunities on our schedule to get there and be in that position without people thinking it's a fluke. So if we get the job done, good on you guys. All right, the next two are easy as well. We play on the road at Vanderbilt and back at home against Florida. We're all picking wins in each of those. Um, Second or third to last, I forget what it's called. Season of the game is on the road against Arkansas. Andy and Bowen, you guys are picking wins there. This was the point in my slate where I was picking, and I was like we don't really have good running backs. Depth at running back, I should say that. We're in the SEC. People are gonna say people have been saying we're gonna get beat up. Like, there's no way we go 10-2, right? So I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of looking for one to find where we're gonna drop the ball, and having watched us lose at Arkansas in the last couple of years, this is kind of the one I chose. But I also haven't seen a lot of great talk about Arkansas in the preseason, so you guys may not know it either. But why are you supremely confident about that one?
I don't know if I would say I'm supremely confident in that game, but I don't know what shape Arkansas will be at that point of the year. That's kind of my thing. So if it was a night game, I think I'd be a lot more nervous. It's going to be at 11 o'clock, so that bodes well for Texas.
Yeah, that's good. Next up is Kentucky at home. We agree that we'll win that one. And then last, maybe the high water mark of the season is the renewed rivalry against Texas A&M. We're playing in College Station. Bowen and I are picking wins there, and Andrew, you're picking a loss. So take the other side of the coin, Andrew. Why are you not feeling good about A&M?
It's a tough place to play. I went to the last four away games at A&M, the Texas A&M game at Kyle Field before the rivalry stopped for a brief period of time. I think Elko is going to do a great job this year. I'm optimistic about A&M, and their schedule's pretty easy in my opinion. Besides the first game and the last game of the year, but yeah, it's a really tough environment. I think anything that's new for a coach when you're going on a road is really hard, and I don't know if we will be mentally ready for that game. And it's going to be A&M Super Bowl. So
Yes, it will. I felt like it was a coin flip. I went with my heart there. I think if we stay injury free, we'll take that one and quiet him down in the first quarter, hopefully. So, to summarize the regular season, Andrew, you picked 10-2. Bowen, you picked 11-1. There you go. And I picked 9-3. We had a couple other questions here about postseason. So we said, who will we play in the SEC championship? Andrew and I said no. Bowen, you said yes. Bowen, you're feeling 11-1.
Yeah, I did not expect to be the most optimistic one coming into this season, but I think y'all have been grinding a lot more tape and interviews and research than me. So I think maybe ignorance is bliss. So we'll call it that. Yeah, I mean, I feel good. I think we'll do well. I think the injury kind of dampened a little bit, all the injury news coming out of camp, but I'm optimistic. I'm liking the direction we're headed. So yeah, I feel good about playing in the SEC championship.
That'd
Yeah.
be that'd be obviously great. We all agree though that we will be in the college football playoff, which it's expanded this year, but that's still a huge achievement. Um, there will be a lot of time this fall to speculate about how far we go if we do make it there. So I'll skip that for now. But the next thing that we looked at was our prediction for who wins the national championship. I picked Oregon. I felt like that tournament environment and the competitiveness of Dan Lanning kind of suited him as a person, and their team's loaded. It's kind of a shot in the dark, but early on, I feel like they're the favorite. Georgia's got a little bit of a tough schedule. Bowen, you took Georgia.
I think it's Georgia's year. I feel like Saban's gone. It's Kirby's time to just sit in the spotlight all on his own. So yeah, I
Daddy's
feel,
time.
yeah, daddy's time. We gotta get on. We probably got to get on the Kirby train to feed the kids. Saban's no more. So yeah, I think they're due for a pretty big season.
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
Andy, Ohio State. Just what do you got there?
I just think they have a lot of talent. I can definitely see Georgia or Oregon winning. Yeah, I just think Ohio State has a lot of talent. Will Howard, I think, is a good quarterback, not great, but I don't think he needs to be great for Ohio State to be great. So that's my thought on that. But oh well, just with the SEC championship though, who do y'all think is going to make it? I said Georgia and LSU. LSU I think has a relatively easy schedule and might surprise some people. But what about y'all? What do y'all think, or who do y'all think will make it?
They're not still doing the East-West thing, right? It's just best two
No,
teams.
it's like the Big 12 how it was for us, like the top two records.
I'm gonna say Georgia, Ole Miss. I like Lane Kiffin. That they had a good season last season. Another guess, I feel like they'll continue and have a good season, maybe surprise people. So I'm gonna say Georgia, Ole Miss.
I think for me, the logic of my predictions, I have to have a Texas Georgia SEC championship game. Otherwise the math just doesn't work. So I could see that
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Stay consistent. Don't
Yeah.
contradict yourself.
Or I could hedge. I could hedge.
Yeah. Um, quickly here, Andrew, you jotted down, predict. I think you meant predict the team that's not currently ranked in the preseason AP poll that will make it.
Yeah, I mean, so someone that's not been ranked has finished in the top 10, I think, like every year for like the last 10 years or something like that. It could be longer, but I think the expectation is someone that's not in the top 25 right now will be in the top 10 by the end of the year, which means they'll be in the playoff. I think it's going to be the Big 12 champion. I think you can go down a lot of different roads here. I did West Virginia. I think they have a lot of talent for the Big 12. Their schedule is not super easy, but it's not super hard. So we'll see. I might look like an idiot at the end of the year, but that's kind of my shot in the dark. What about y'all?
Yeah. Bowen, go.
I'm not sure. I really have not been locked in on who's outside the top 25 that has a shot. So, Kev, what do you think? You have some predictions, some hot takes?
Yeah, I can't bail you out there. I can't go that deep in the well. There's just so much unknown. Like you said, Andrew, that will happen. There will be a team that starts unranked that finishes high. But I'm not going to stand by it. I will watch and enjoy the journey, but no idea. No idea.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, honestly, none of us have any clue. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
For sure.
yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for all the predictions and for bringing us through. We're going to close this out with Betting Corner. So obviously we don't have a Texas game to bet on this week, but we do have an opportunity to put some futures out there. In seasons past, the futures have been a pretty significant factor in who ends up on top in Betting Corner. And so we're gonna set the tone here. Obviously, you can make future bets throughout the course of the season, but we'll start week 0, week 00, with some futures bets, and then we'll close out the podcast with just a good note on some of these bets. So, Kevin, we'll go to you first. Are you liking any futures bets out there this season?
Yeah, I stayed on brand with my national championship prediction, so I'll put 2 units on Oregon. And I don't want to forget where I came from, so I'm also going to put 1 unit on Texas to win the Natty. A hope and a prayer, but they're saying we're good. So, do we want to
Sources
just
say.
do we want to just do Natty and go around the horn and then do Heisman, or should I do the full slate?
Just give us your slate.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's easy too. Also, 1 unit on Quinn to win Heisman. I put not a lot of money, but more than that on Heisman and national championship predictions last year, and like it just hurts at the end of the season to like have a big dip down in your results. So I don't want to put too much on the futures.
I like it. Andy, what about you?
So I only made 2 bets overall, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Bo, but this year every week we're going to have to put a bet on Texas, right? At least one.
That's
one
true.
Unit on
Yep,
Texas,
that is
right?
thanks for mentioning that. That is a rule change we're instituting because in seasons past, sometimes we were just not integrating Texas as much into our betting corner, and so this is a Texas football podcast. We want to get back to our roots, and so we are mandating a Texas bet. It could be a a money line on our opponent, or it could be Texas not covering the spread. But we need some action on the Texas game to make sure our listeners are plugged into where we're heading, or where they should fade. So yes, Andy, that is the rule. With that being said, what is your bet?
So my Texas bet, it's I'm going to also put 1 unit on Quinn to win the Heisman. Usually terrible with Heisman predictions, but if Quinn lives up to expectations with the brand name of Texas, he'll win a Heisman, hopefully. And then y'all are going to laugh at this, but got to feed the family, especially with the baby on the way. Give me 9 units on Georgia to make the CFP at minus 600.
Okay. Okay.
Nice, I like
The
it.
payout on that is tiny, but who cares?
I was gonna say about the Quinn thing. Now he's got the Dr. Pepper Fansville curse potentially. I think it was Caleb Williams last year, and his team.
Bryce Young the year before. So
what did Bryce do that year? Falter?
He didn't win the Heisman that year, did he? Or was it I forget.
I'm forgetting as well.
I'm just throwing that into the ether. There might be a Dr. Pepper Fansville curse Quinn is going to be associated with.
All right, I'm rounding us out on betting corner. It's not too far off from Andy's logic on Georgia making the college football playoff, but I'm bringing a couple other friends to try to put the numbers more in our favor. I'm taking a parlay of Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas, all to make the playoff. I'm getting minus 110 on that, which is, for listeners, I can bet $11 to make $10. That's almost 1-to-1, which is pretty good. If you're gonna say Georgia is already gonna make it, Ohio State's probably a shoe-in. I'm really just taking Texas to make the playoff if you really think about it. So I'm getting minus 110 on that. I'm gonna do 10 units on that. It's gonna be fun to hopefully watch throughout the season. It's definitely a lot less exotic than Andy's bet last year with like USC 5+ wins, Alabama 7+ wins, but some fun action to follow throughout the season.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. No more 11-team parlays.
All right, boys. Well, that is a good round of bets. That is some phenomenal analysis today on the season ahead. I'm super stoked to go and see what'll come out of all this and to get started with the season. And that brings us to a close. So, folks, thanks for sticking around, listening, and tuning in to our first episode of what we hope will be an electric maiden season in the SEC. We'll be with y'all every step of the way. So tune in every week to hear Texas Football Podcast and all our takes and all the highs and lows of what's to come. So looking forward to it. And thanks for listening. And hook 'em.
Hook 'em.